My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Today is the feast of the Evangelist St. Mark, and since antiquity, his figure has been associated with the winged lion, a figure of a winged lion, one of the four creatures who worship the Lamb in the book of Revelation. He's a powerful creature, this lion, but also St. Mark opens his gospel with John the Baptist, who is described as a voice crying out into the desert, like a lion roaring God's message in the desert. And at the same time, well, he represents royalty, the lion does, because he underlines Jesus as the Lion of Judah. Well, I heard there's also a legend, I don't know if it's true, but there is a legend that says that St. Mark was thrown to the lions by the Romans, and everybody was intensely watching to see him get devoured by them. And then when they let the lions loose, well, they just ended up sitting next to him and going to sleep. And he was safe and sound. He was good, you know. I think he got martyred a little bit later. But what's clear is that all the fathers of the church agreed that Mark was pretty young when he first met St. Peter and became like his personal secretary. So that means that whatever you read in St. Mark is really, you could say, the life of Jesus seen through the eyes of Peter himself. And today's gospel is in fact the very last lines of St. Mark, where he records how Jesus appeared to the 11 and said to them these very famous words: "Go into the whole world and proclaim the gospel to every creature. Whoever believes and is baptized will be saved." So those were the last words that Peter remembered. And when he went out and preached everywhere with the others, that's what he remembered to do. And the Lord worked with them and confirmed the word through accompanying signs. So those were the last words that he heard. He heard, go out. Basically, the Lord was saying, look, I've taught you what you need to know. You've listened. I've showed you miracles. I've corrected you here and there. Now go, do it. In fact, the last words that we hear at the end of Mass, when we finish Mass, the priest gives the blessing and he says, the Mass is ended, go in peace. Or he can say, go and announce the gospel of the Lord. Or go in peace, just like go, glorifying the Lord with your life. As you know, in Latin, it's quite simple. It just says, ite missa est. And we respond, Deo gratias. Now, I knew a friend, an older friend of the family, who used to joke about going to Mass as a kid in the 1940s. Of course, in those days, the Mass was in Latin. And his favorite moment in the Mass was when he would hear chanted that phrase, ite missa est, chanted, like it took a while to chant it. And the congregation would respond, Deo gratias. And for him as a child, that meant, thank God, we can now go out and play. Well, I guess he hadn't fully grasped the meaning of that one word, ite, that is, go, like that imperative command, go out. For him, it just meant, oh, good, you can get out of here. You've done your obligation. Go, get going. See you later, right? That's kind of like he interpreted it. But, of course, the church has meant it much more as a responsibility. It's like go out, meaning, you have heard the word of God preached here in the church. You've heard it explained and instructed upon its meaning. You've been nourished by the Holy Eucharist. Now go. This cannot just stay with you. There's a whole world out there that needs you, that needs God, that is secularized, that needs to see your good example, that needs to hear your defense of the truth, that needs to see your joy. Don't just stay here. Now it's your turn. Go out. I mean, that's what essentially that, ite missa est is saying. Go in the peace of Christ. That's what it's really saying. And Pope Francis has emphasized this on a number of occasions. And I remember reading a homily of his from World Youth Day in Brazil, when he was speaking in Copacabana in Rio de Janeiro, 2013. And he there emphasized the duty to integrate the words of the Lord, to extend that preaching themselves. Right? And in one of these homilies, he spoke about this responsibility, and that it was like a responsibility, that it was like a treasure that we have with regards to the faith. And I'll quote to you, he said, "The experience of this encounter must not remain locked up in your life or in the small group of your parish or your movement or your community. That would be like withholding oxygen from a flame that was burning strongly. Faith," he said, "is a flame that grows stronger the more it is shared and passed on, so that everyone may know, love, and confess Jesus Christ, the Lord of life and history." We saw in the Easter Vigil how that flame was passed on from the Easter candle to everybody in the Vigil. And it applies to us too. As we hear the Lord's words, that we have to feel that responsibility to pass it on. That's why Pope Francis, he likes to challenge young people, not just young people, older people too, but he doesn't like the idea that a young person should be like a couch potato. He's used that image often, that they should remain somehow passive or just focused on their own things, even good things that might be good, but not really kind of like to go out. In that same homily, he says, Jesus did not say, "Go if you would like to, if you have time." No, but he said, "Go and make disciples of all nations." The Pope said, "Sharing the experience of faith and bearing witness to the faith, proclaiming the gospel. This is a command that the Lord entrusts to the whole church, and that includes you. But it is a command that is born not from a desire for domination, from the desire for power, but from the force of love." And he goes on to describe the beauty of that love. So if we go, like Pope Francis has said, we must go because we have received that mandate to really be true apostles. In fact, I've heard it said that we don't just do apostolate, we are apostles. I mean, apostolate for a Christian is not like a task or an activity that takes up a certain amount of hours every day. It's not like a job where you punch in the morning and you do your hours, you do your task. It's really like an identity, like being an apostle. And so it means we have to reach the far corners of the earth, but also the far corners of our own life. And this imperative command that Mark recorded, well, it was certainly deeply entrenched in the early Christians. And Pope Francis has often given the first Christians, the early Christians, as a model for us. And an echo of this can be seen in a 2nd century author whose name is Minutius Felix. He wrote a series of dialogues in the 2nd century, like conversations about friendship and so forth. And in one of these dialogues, he has this wonderful story about these 3 friends that go on an excursion. Now, 2 of these friends were Christians and 1 was pagan. They were all lawyers and they worked in the Roman Forum. And they worked together during the grape harvest and they decided to go on vacation. So, according to this guy, Manicius, these 3 guys are strolling along the Tiber River, and they walk along for quite a while until they reach the Mediterranean Sea. And there, on the beach in Ostia Antica, they see these children skipping stones on the waves, and they see how many skips they can make and so forth. And as they watch this, these friends discuss the Christian faith, and they get into a really lively debate. But by the end of their excursion, the one who was a pagan has now decided that he too wants to share the faith of his friends. So that conversation, that walk, that holiday that they had at the beach completely changed his life forever. And isn't that what the Lord wants to do with us? Isn't he saying, go out to the whole world, proclaim the good news to all creation? I mean, we may not live on the Tiber, but, well, an echo of that command can still resonate in our hearts, in our work, in our family life, with our friends. It's an urgent task that many souls await, to see us, to speak to us, to see our example, so that we respond to that imperative command. Our Blessed Mother, Mary, well, she will help us when we interact with our friends, well, when we go out, and she will accompany us and intercede for us so that we be effective apostles. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, St. Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.